Welcome back to God is Alive. My name's Serena, and here I speak all about what it truly means to have a personal relationship with God. We have faith every day that will wake up tomorrow, so I want to start a fire in your heart to stop chasing the temporary things of the world and to put that same faith in God. So let's learn about God and learn to lean on God, because what's the worst that could happen? Hi, my loves. Welcome back to God is Alive. I'm continuing my Genesis series, and today's all about Abraham, with the underlying message that God always sees us. In chapter 11 of Genesis, it goes from Noah's son Shem all the way to Abraham. And in chapter 12, it starts off with Abraham. Abraham is out here living his normal life, and the Lord comes to Abraham and he says, "Leave your land, your relatives, and your father's house, and come to the land that I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you, I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, I will curse anyone who treats you with contempt, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you." That's really random. Imagine if one day you're just living your life, and God appears to you out of nowhere, and he says, "Leave everything you know and love. Follow me, because if you do, all the people on earth will be blessed through you." And I don't know about you, but I sense a little Jesus in that verse. Jesus is a long ways away from Genesis, but it's not a long ways away off from God's plan. What else could God possibly mean when he said, "And all the people on earth will be blessed through you"? All the people on earth. Every one of us. This is what? At least 5,000 years ago? And yet, God is still referring to all the people on earth. You, me, everyone. We're still being blessed by Abraham and his decision to follow God, because it led to Jesus. And the thing about God is, when God makes a promise, he keeps it. In fact, God keeps both sides of his promises. God keeps his side of the promise, his side of the bargain, and he gives you and I the strength to keep our side of the bargain, the same way he gave Abraham the strength to keep his side of his promise. Because no matter how much or how little we believe God's promises, doesn't make them any less true. We need to stop looking at God through the lens of our human perspective. We need to stop projecting our own insecurities and our own unbelief on what God is capable of. Because if we don't, we're missing out on experiencing his peace here on earth. When we're too focused on, does God have a plan for me? How can I find this plan? If he even tells you the plan, are you going to believe it's true? Worry, and you miss out on experiencing his peace, experiencing the fact that we follow him into unknown territory, and it is through him that we will succeed. He's taking care of the plan. We just have to get up and do. And when you run across a bump in the road, guess what? You go into your closet and you shut the door and you talk to your father, your friend, and your mentor, who's always there with you to answer any questions, to wipe any tears, to be there when the joy hits and when you want to give your praise to. He's there. So what would have convinced you to follow God? What do you think convinced Abraham to follow God? I think it was through his faith. And I say that because in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 through 9, it says, "By faith Abraham went out, although he did not know where he was going." He has absolutely no proof, no evidence. The only thing Abraham has is faith. So we need to put our own pride and our own belief of what God can or cannot do in our life, place it on the back burner, throw it in the garbage, and take the garbage out. God works in people's lives just as much today as he did back then. He is how we will get to the true promised land. He can satisfy our every need, hope, and desire. So Abraham listened. Abraham and Lot, after a long journey, went up to the land of Negev. But Lot and Abraham were both so rich that they didn't want to live near each other, for their possessions could not stay together. So they decided to split up the land that God brought them to. Abraham lived in the land of Canaan, and Lot lived in the cities on the plain near Sodom and Gomorrah. And God makes really big promises to Abraham. For now, he even says Look from the place where you are, look north and south, east and west, for I will give you and your offspring forever all the land that you see. Forever. That's a strong word. First of all, this is a strong promise. But what do we know about God? We know that God doesn't make a promise he can't keep. And when he says forever, I think he means forever. I think God means, look at all of this land. You see all this? You and all your offspring and all the people that believe in me, I think they will get this and so much more. The Lord came to Abraham in a vision another day and said, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your reward will be very great. This is in Genesis chapter 15. But Abraham says, Lord, what can you give me? I am childless. The heir of my house is going to be my servant. And God says, your servant will not be your heir. Instead, one who comes from your own body will be your heir. Look at the sky and count the stars, if you're able to. Your offspring will be that numerous. God is like, don't be afraid. I've got you. You're over here worried that all of your possessions aren't going to go to your heir and that you're not going to have any kids. But God isn't worried, so neither should you be. I know you want it. I know you want it to happen faster. But God isn't worried, and neither should you be. So if something is on your mind, something is on your heart, and you're constantly worried about it, whether it be money, whether it be your love, whether it be your marriage, whether it be your children, whether it be where you're going to be next year, or whatever it is, stop worrying. What does it say right here in this verse? Chapter 15, verse 6, and Abram believed the Lord, and he credited to him as righteousness. The Lord hasn't done anything for Abram yet, besides giving him directions. The Lord is getting Abram to trust him first, before Abram gets his rewards. God cares more about our character than our comfort. But later, Abram's wife, Sarai, had not borne any children for him. But she owned an Egyptian slave named Hagar, and Sarai said to Abram, well, since the Lord has prevented me from bearing any children, go to my slave, and perhaps through her I can build a family. This is Genesis chapter 16. So he slept with Hagar, and she became pregnant. After Hagar became pregnant, Sarai mistreated her so much that Hagar ran away. And the angel of the Lord saw this and pursued Hagar and said, go home, for I will greatly multiply your offspring, that there will be way too many to count. You will name your son Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your cry of affliction. I think that was a beautiful moment for Hagar to realize, and I mean truly realize, that God is actually out there watching over her. He takes care of her and he watches over her and he wants the best for her. Even if Hagar doesn't know it, it's true. Even if Hagar didn't believe it, it's true. And so Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to him. And God is still promising to make him something big. I mean, we already know he is, but for then the Lord made Abram Abraham, for he will be the father of many nations. And the Lord made Sarai Sarah, the mother of many nations. The Lord said, indeed, I will give you a son by Sarah. I will bless her, and she will produce nations. The kings and people will come from her. Chapter 17, verse 16. But Abraham fell face down, and he laughed. And he said, can a child be born to 100-year-old man? Can Sarah, a 90-year-old woman, give birth? Abraham's laughing at God. He's literally laughing. But God says, no, your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac. I will confirm my covenant with him as a permanent covenant. God says Ishmael, Hagar's son, will be the father of 12 tribal leaders, but Sarah will bear Isaac. And the Lord goes, I will come back to you in about a year's time, and your wife Sarah will have a son. And since Sarah had passed the age of childbearing, she laughed to herself and said, after I am worn out, my Lord is old, will I have delight? But the Lord asked Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, can I really have a baby when I'm old? Is anything impossible for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will come back to you. In about a year, she will have a son. these people, Abraham and Sarah, were filled with unbelief. God promised them time and time again, and yet they were filled with unbelief. Why is that? We're talking about the creator of the universe here. Why would we be filled with unbelief when he promises us something? In a way, that's kind of why it's important to read the Bible, in order to learn from other people's mistakes, in order to learn who God is, how he works, and what his character is. For right here, Abraham and Sarah are in complete disbelief, and God is still gonna perform blessings and miracles for them. Why? Because Abraham and God are like friends. They have a relationship together. Abraham goes to the Lord, calls out to God. God appears to Abraham. Abraham is obedient to what God asks him to do. Is Abraham a saint? No. The Bible never says that anyone is perfect except for Jesus. It says that we're all sinful, actually. But Abraham has a relationship with God, something that each one of us can do. Something that all of us can do. But, dun dun dun, there was an outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah. The Lord said the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is immense. Their sin is extremely serious. I will go down to see if what they had done justifies the cry that has come up to me. And Abraham steps forward and says, will you really sweep away the righteous people with the wicked? You cannot possibly do such a thing. You cannot kill the righteous with the wicked. You cannot treat the righteous and the wicked alike. You cannot possibly do that. Won't the judge of the whole earth do what is just? Because God remembers Abraham and he cares for Abraham, and because God cares for the righteous, God sent angels to rescue Lot, for supposedly he was the only one righteous amongst the entire city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, I'm sure you've heard of this story. It may have been a while, it may have been last week, but I really want you to understand the extent to what it was like living in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis chapter 19. The two angels entered Sodom in the evening as Lot was sitting in Sodom's gateway. When Lot saw them, he got up to meet them. Lot invited the two men to sleep over at his house. So Lot brought the two angels disguised as men into his home. They ate, and before bed, the men of the city of Sodom and Gomorrah were pounding on the door, asking Lot to hand over the strangers for them to defile. Imagine living in a city that is so corrupt. They notice, the people of the town, the people of the city, notice when two strangers enter the city and what house they went to. And the people of the city come banging on your door and they're like, hey, we see you brought a stranger from another town. Bring him out so that we can defile them. And Lot's response to that is, look, I've got two daughters who haven't been intimate with a man. I'll bring them out to you and you can do whatever you want to them. But please don't do anything to these men because they have come under the roof of my protection. But the men of Sodom and Gomorrah didn't want Lot's daughters. They wanted the strangers. And they were willing to break down the door to get him. But the angels reached out, brought Lot inside, and explained to him that they were about to destroy the place because of the outcry against its people is so great before the Lord. And something that's a huge theme throughout the whole Bible is if you're not for God, you're against God. And things that are against God eventually get destroyed. Lot tried to save his sons-in-laws and explain to them what was happening, but they thought he was joking. Sounds kind of familiar. I'm over here, I built an entire podcast based around this book and based around my relationship with the Lord, and yet a lot of people out here think I'm joking. Like, they really think I'm joking, and I'm being dead serious. But guess what? Lot's son-in-laws didn't have the experience that Lot had. Lot was visited by two angels who were like, we're going to destroy your city, we're not joking. But Lot's son-in-laws didn't have that experience. They weren't close enough to God. We all had a life before we became a believer. And usually it's a life that consists of not really caring about following God or listening to God or having a relationship with God. It was usually about us. and making a way through this world, making a name for ourselves. So when you believe in God and you become that believer, have you ever been tempted to go back? Is there something that Jesus has taken out of your life that used to be in your life, that used to hold you back from going places, but you got rid of it for the better? Have you ever been tempted to go back? There are certain things that we choose to give up when we follow God. And everyone is on a different spiritual walk with the Lord than other people. But when we follow God, there's one thing for certain, and it's that we choose to give some things up. We choose to give up certain things when we follow God. Number one, because we know it's probably no good for us. And number two, it goes against God and His will or plan for our life. For example, drugs and alcohol. That's something that I feel like a lot of people partake in. And if you're not around that lifestyle, then good for you. Honestly, it's better that way. But there's a lot of people out here that are in that lifestyle. And they know it's no good for them, but they don't have a huge reason to stop. They don't really have the hope that is given to us through Jesus. And once you have hope in Jesus, you realize that it wasn't any good for you and that it's holding you back from following God's plan and will for your life. I guess I mentioned drugs and alcohol because that was like a big temptation for me before I found the Lord. And something I really had to learn along the way is that the Lord really only wants to take you somewhere better than where you already are. If He wants to take you anywhere, He's going to take you somewhere better. He's not going to take you somewhere worse. And when He's taking us to the other level, and He's convicting our hearts to change, and He's convicting our hearts to move, and He's working in our life, we know it's really tempting to look back. But we know that it sure doesn't help us. If I look back on the person that I was, sure I can miss the happy times. Sure I can even miss some of the sad times. I can just miss that time period of my life, for I will never be able to go back there. But it doesn't help me. A wise man once said, if you live in the past, you'll miss the present. And it's just like driving a car. You look back to learn, you look back to stay safe. But if you keep looking back, it won't take you very long until you crash. And our thoughts aren't God's thoughts. And through our limited judgment and perspective, we don't know why people do the things they do the way God does, or why things happen the way they happen the way God does. But as the angels were helping Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters out of the city, Lot's wife looked back. The Bible doesn't go into why her punishment was so severe, why she became a pillar of salt, why she looked back. But I have a really strong feeling that deep down in her heart, she wanted her worldly life in Sodom and Gomorrah over God's salvation. God was rescuing her. God was taking her to a better place. And I think deep down in Sarah's heart, she wanted to go back to Sodom and Gomorrah. And therefore, everything that is wicked eventually gets destroyed. When God destroyed the cities of the plain, He remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the middle of the upheaval when He demolished the cities where Lot had lived. This is the God of the Bible. He never takes His eyes off His people, and He never stops watching them. He never stops taking care of them. The Lord was watching Hagar. The Lord was working on Isaac being born. The Lord was working on saving Lot, taking care of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Lord is working on a lot of things at one time. And so when we're working on a lot of things at one time, and we're juggling a lot of things in our life, and things are falling because we're juggling, and we feel at a loss at options sometimes. Do you ever find yourself wondering if God sees you? You ever feel like you could have a godly intervention that may help your life, but you're unsure if He's even there, if He even sees you, if that's even possible? We learn very quickly that the Lord sees His people. No matter our circumstances, the Lord is exactly where each one of us needs Him. Honestly, living in the world that we live in, He is the highlight of my life. My life is a wilderness without Him. My life would just be a whole bunch of uncertainties if it wasn't for God. But through God, I know that it's not. Through God, I know that it's taken care of. Through God, I know that He will point me to a plan and to a purpose when the timing's right. So thank you, my love, for tuning in today, and I hope you learned something. My song suggestion for you today is Even If by Mercy Me, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Talk to you next time.